Hi everyone, welcome to the third edition of Nature's News. My name is Carrie Schved. I'm the Education Director at White Memorial Conservation Center. And when it comes to nature unfolding before our eyes, there is no better month than the month of May. Everything is happening right now. Birds are singing, frogs are calling, babies are being born, flowers are blooming. It's just such an amazing month for nature. So once again, I'm going to show you a sampling of some of the natural phenomena that are occurring all around us, maybe even in your own backyard. So join me as we discover nature around northwestern Connecticut. So as you're walking along, the edges of your property, you might find some non-native species that are blooming right now, like this henbit. Of course, there are plenty of dandelions in bloom at the moment. There's also a species called garlic mustard that you might see with those little white flowers at the top. Don't forget to be on the lookout in your yard for some native flowers as well, like this beautiful type of wildflower that's called wood anemone. Let me zoom in on a beautiful one right here. Wood anemone is also known as windflower because it does tend to get pollinated by the wind, and it blows in the wind, as you can see right here. But it doesn't rely on insects to pollinate. And we've got 5 beautiful white, what look like petals on this flower, but it turns out those are actually the sepals of the flower. And then the leaves are compound, and each stem has 3 leaflets coming off of it, 3 lobed leaflets. Spring wildflowers don't get much prettier than the gorgeous red trillium. Look at this. How pretty is that? Native wildflower. Trillium, of course, you've got the prefix tri for 3, and we have 3 leaves here. We have 3 sepals on the underside, and then we have 3 petals up above. So very good name for it. And this blooms end of April through mid-May, and it's just one of the prettiest flowers that grows in our area during early spring. Well, look who we have here in this beautiful wetland. Right on top of a log with some moss, we have a green frog, one of the most common frogs in our area. You can find them in almost any wet place. Green frogs do vary in coloration. Some are greener than this one, but they do get fairly large. They're only second in size to bullfrogs, which we also have around here. Green frogs are out now and they are trying to find a mate. So the males are making their distinctive call, which actually sounds like a broken banjo string being plucked. So listen for that call in your area, and if you hear that, you know for sure that you have green frogs living near you. Now, I'm not sure if this frog is not jumping just because it's a kind of a colder day today, so he hasn't warmed up his body enough yet, or maybe he is just so still because he doesn't know what to do about the fact that there is a very large owl right behind him. This is Shakespeare, our barred owl, and I just happened to be taking him for a walk when I saw our green frog. Now, barred owls will prey upon frogs and salamanders and toads, among many other things. And so it doesn't look like Shakespeare's too interested. He's too busy looking at the camera with his beautiful eyes. But the frog might be wondering why a predator is hanging out so close to him right now. So that green frog sound, that broken banjo being plucked, is just one of the many, many frog sounds that you might hear during the month of May. So once again, here's our green frog. But another one you're going to hear very commonly during this month is a bullfrog. Some people think it sounds like they're saying jug-o-rum, jug-o-rum. And then we have the gray tree frog, which makes kind of what I call like a gargling sound. So that's the gray tree frog right here. We still have plenty of peepers that are calling. They started calling all the way back in March, but I still hear them now. If you're lucky enough, you might be in a habitat that has this species, which is a little bit more rare, the northern leopard frog, and they sound like they're making a knocking noise. And then, of course, I mentioned it in the first Nature's News episode, but we have plenty of American toads that are still calling right about now, and they make that trill. So you could really hear any of these frog species calling during the month of May. So keep your ears perked for frog sounds. This warmer weather definitely gives us the opportunity to bring some of our education animals out for some exercise. And my daughter had the idea of bringing Corny out to put him on one of these big boulders to see what he thought about it. He's still not sure. He hasn't been moving around a whole lot, but see him sticking out his tongue? When he sticks out his tongue, that is basically the way that a snake smells. So every time his tongue comes out, there are particles of scent that fall on his tongue, and then he brings his tongue back in and he puts it up against the roof of his mouth. That's where his Jacobson's organ is, and that's what actually does the smelling. Ooh, we found a little nook. He's checking it out. Can't get in there, Corny. So now he's going to keep on investigating. And it's in the 70s today, so it's definitely warm enough for a cold-blooded creature like a corn snake to be out and about and to be basking in the sun. Since they are ectothermic, their body temperature on the inside is dependent on what the temperature is on the outside. So a lot of times these warm days is when you'll see reptiles come out to bask in the sun to help warm up their inner temperature. And that thick, scaly skin prevents reptiles from worrying about any kind of sunburn. Must be nice. So there are so many different bird species that are landing in Connecticut right now, back from their winter haunts. Some of them are just passing through on their way further north to breed, and some of them will end up breeding right here. So May is such a fun time to see all these birds coming through, and I'm going to show you a few of them right now. Let me introduce you to one of the most talkative birds in New England. This is called a catbird, and they make all kinds of noises. They are mimics. Sometimes they can mimic the sounds of other birds, but they also have their own unique noises as well. One of them being what sounds like a cat saying meow, which is where they get the name catbird from. And when they do lay eggs, turns out they can recognize the difference between their eggs and the eggs of a parasitic bird called a cowbird. Cowbirds will lay their eggs in other birds' nests and leave those parents to raise the chicks. But catbirds are able to recognize a cowbird egg versus their own eggs, and they will push out cowbird eggs from their nest. So I think that's a pretty cool attribute about catbirds. Here we have some chipping sparrows, which have just arrived back from their wintering grounds. Now, chipping sparrows are often put in the category of LBBs, little brown birds. They are, being a type of sparrow, they do tend to have mostly browns and grays on their plumage, and so they can be fairly hard to distinguish. But the chipping sparrow has a pretty distinctive brown cap on its head that helps us distinguish it as a chipping sparrow. Here's another one of our spring arrivals that maybe isn't the showiest of birds, but very ubiquitous in this area during the spring and summer. It's called a veery. It's a type of thrush, so related to robins and wood thrushes and others. And it makes a really cool call, almost like a spiral going downwards. So listen for that call in the woods, and you know that you've got a veery near you.
Just as a follow-up to the last Nature's News, where I highlighted Canada geese and talked about how their chicks would be hatching soon, here's a picture that was just taken the day after, right here on White Memorial property, of a pair of Canada geese with their goslings following close behind.
Okay, can you spot the chipmunk, the eastern chipmunk, in this shot? He's being very, very still, hoping that I don't notice that he's there, but he is. This is the rock wall in my backyard. And of course, chipmunks love rock walls because of all the nooks and crannies they can get into. And this time of year, oh, I scared him away. I got a little bit too close. This time of year is when chipmunks are actually having their babies. So who knows, maybe somewhere in this rock wall is a little nest of baby chipmunks just having been born. I don't see him, but if you listen closely, you can hear the chipping noise of a chipmunk. And that's their alarm call. So somewhere in this thicket, there's a chipmunk that's annoyed with me right now, and he's letting me know it by chipping at me. Okay, so for this episode's nature activity, we are going to play Meet a Tree. And I've got my daughter Phoebe here to help me out. You need 2 people for this activity. Basically what you're gonna do is one person is going to get blindfolded and the other person leads them to one of the trees around you. So it has to be an area that has a good number of trees. You lead them to that tree and you give them the chance to feel the tree, feel all the different characteristics of the tree, and try to get a picture in their mind of what that tree looks like. So they're meeting the tree. Then you lead them back to the same spot you started. You might give them a little spin to confuse them a little bit. You take off their blindfold, and then they have to go see which tree they were led to. So, ready to show a demonstration? Don't forget, if you are the person who is not blindfolded, it is your responsibility to make sure that your partner is safe, that you don't lead them into any obstacles, or do anything that could get them hurt. So please make sure that you're responsible with your partner. I'm gonna put my hands on her shoulders to make sure that I'm always protecting her and leading her in the right direction. And I'm gonna give her a little spin just so she's a little disoriented, so she doesn't quite know where she is. And then I'm gonna keep my hands on her shoulders and I'm gonna walk her around a little bit, step high so that you don't trip over anything. Okay, I'm gonna take you on a little maze. So make sure that you stop your partner before they get too close to the tree. So we're gonna stop right here. Put your hands out. Okay, now I'm gonna give you a chance to touch the tree, feel all around it, up and down and around. And by the way, make sure you do not choose a tree that has a hairy vine on it. That hairy vine is poison ivy. Phoebe, you might wanna check some of the other sides of the tree as well. Find out if it's touching anything else, or if there's any landmark around it that might give you a clue. All right, now I'm going to lead you back now. Maybe we won't go directly back to our beginning spot. We'll do a little bit more loop-de-loos so that we make sure that you're plenty disoriented. But eventually we'll get you right back to where we started. Okay, now we're gonna take off Phoebe's blindfold and see if she can figure out which of these several trees is the one that she met. So, okay. Phoebe, how about this one? Is this one close to any rock walls or rocks?
No.
No, okay, so it's probably not this one because you said you remembered feeling rocks. Okay, and how about this one over here? Try this one. Put your arms around it.
It also didn't have any of these things.
Okay, and does this one seem like the right size or a little too small?
It's kind of small.
Kind of small? Okay, let's try this one over here.
Could have been this one.
Could have been this one.
I did feel some mossy rocks and leaves.
Oh.
And I did go about to a rock like this and was feeling a mossy rock like this one.
Okay.
So I think it's this one.
You think it's this one? And the answer is yes! You found your tree. Very good. So that is how Meet a Tree works. You just need a space with a fair number of trees. Make sure it's an area that doesn't have a lot of debris on the ground so that you can easily lead your partner to the different trees. And that's how you play. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Nature's News. Hey, if you like what we're doing and you want to show your support, jump on whitememorialcc.org and you can either make a one-time donation or you can become a member of the White Memorial Conservation Center. Take care, everyone. See you next time.